Hello, the Divine Code reading for April 11th, pages 617 and 618. We are in the chapter, The Prohibition of Aiding Theft, Having Benefit from Theft, or Buying Stolen Property, and the Laws of Unintentional Theft. Topic number 8. Regarding an object that was not fully acquired by the thief, that is, the object is considered stolen in the hands of the last holder, that is, the owner is not yet despaired of recovering the object and no permanent changes occurred to it, regarding which it will be explained it was explained in chapter 2 that there is no change in jurisdiction and the object still belongs to the owner. Even if the buyer had no idea that the object was stolen and he was only informed after the fact, or if a second person robbed the object from the first thief, in which case the object does not change jurisdiction, as explained in topic 219. So, if no change, okay, so the original owner owns the item, unless something either something has changed the essence of the item, it's no longer the item that he originally owned, or if he has despaired, and then after despairing, he's given up hope of finding the item again. Now, while it's still in the same person's hands, even afterwards, it would still be his. It would still be the owner's. But if the owner gave up hope, and then it changed hands after the owner gave up hope, then he loses ownership of it. He would still have to be reimbursed for the damages of the loss, but he's considered lost to him at that point. However, if he never gave up if he never lost the jurisdiction, it must be returned to the original owner, and it is forbidden to make use of or have benefit from the object, in the same way that this is prohibited for the thief. So, even if it had changed hands a number of times, the thief sold it to one person who gave it to another person, it still belongs to the original owner, and nobody has permission to use it because it still belongs to the original owner. Even if the person who has it in their hands is not aware of it, and once they become aware of it, then it's prohibited to that person to use it. It is also forbidden for another person to buy the stolen object from his last holder. See Shulchan Aruch Harav, Laws of Robbery, topic 11. This is also apparent from Shulchan Aruch Harav, or Achaim 649, topic number 6. It appears that if the owner knew that the object was stolen, and he made a complete change in the object in order to remove it fully from the owner's jurisdiction, he is transgressing the prohibition of theft. Rabbi Zalman Nehemiah Goldberg comments, it appears that this concurs with the opinion of Nivet HaMishpat, which brought in footnote 103 that making a permanent change in the item is considered theft. Although the Ketzet HaKoshan mentioned there is of the opinion that the second party is exempt. So the question is, if if the owner has not despaired, someone buys the item. Okay, so somebody stole a board of wood, a plank of wood, and he sold it to somebody. The person who bought it takes the plank of wood and builds a chair out of it. Now, the chair is now a completely different item from a plank of wood, and it's changed its name, and therefore the name of the object, the essence of the object has changed, and therefore it is now no longer something that would be in the jurisdiction of the original owner. That would still be considered theft according to what's being said here. The changing of the object would still be considered theft, especially if the buyer knew. If the buyer knew of it, it would definitely be considered theft, but it's not a criminal liability punishment, but it's still the sin of theft. And there is a question as to whether, some people would say the second party is exempt. The second party, the person who bought the board and burned it and turned it into a chair, changing the essence of it, is exempt from the capital punishment aspect of the law of theft. However, he still, by changing it, he still would be considered an aid to the thief. And that would be something the courts of law would have to make rules about as to how that's handled. But he is still transgressing the prohibition of theft. It's just not a Torah liability at that point. If the victim of the theft despaired of recovering the object, there was no prohibition for the buyer to use it, even if he sinned in buying it, because he knew at the time of the purchase it was stolen. So if once the victim of the theft despairs, then changes that occur afterwards are no longer at the point of, anything that occurs to the object before the owner despaired, the owner would still want the object, unless it was transformed into a different item. But he would still want it back, no matter how many people had bought the object or changed hands. The owner still wants it back. But once he despairs of receiving it back, he no longer expects to see it back. Then any transfer of ownership would be valid from that point on. What it's indicating here, it's not stating clearly whether the despair occurred before or after the current holder of the object obtained the object. It seems to be stating that once the owner despairs of it, the person would be allowed to use it, even though technically he would still have to return the object. If let's say a thief stole a shovel and he sold it to somebody. That somebody he stole it to would still have an obligation to return the shovel. But once the owner despairs of it, he would be allowed to use the shovel. And I would assume that because the change of hands, the person purchased it while the owner was still hoping to get it back. But then once he despairs after the person purchased it, it would seem that he would still have the obligation, the person who purchased it would still have the obligation to return the shovel, but in the interim, he can use the shovel. Seems to be what is being said here. Shogun or Korav, Laws of Robbery, Topic 11, that although one transgresses through buying a stolen property, and it is henceforth permissible to use it, since the object itself no longer has any connection with the original owner. It is only while it is in his hands that the thief that it is forbidden for anyone to use it, including the thief, since he is obligated to return the object itself, as explained earlier in Topic 5 above. So if the thief stole a shovel, he's obligated to return it. If the owner despairs, he's still obligated to return it. Plus, the original thief is not allowed to use the shovel after the owner despairs. However, if someone else bought it and then after buying it, the owner despaired, he is required to return the shovel. but in the intern, he's allowed to use it. Seems to be what's being said here. Topic number 9. It is forbidden to buy a stolen object from the thief unless it has undergone a complete change by which the thief acquires the object, as was explained earlier. And this is a great sin, since it strengthens the hands of those that sin and causes them to continue on to other thefts. For if there are no buyers, then there is usually no reason to steal. Regarding the matter, it is written in Proverbs 29:24, one who dwells with a thief hates his own soul. And that's understood to be, since in the end he will also be caught and punished for assisting the thief. As explained in Rambam, Laws of Theft, Chapter 5, and Laws of Robbery, Chapter 5, and Shokanor Kosha Mishpat, Chapters 356 and 359. If, however, his intention is for the owner's benefit, in order to return the object, he is permitted to buy the stolen object from the thief. We learned that in Shokanor Korab, Laws of Robbery, Topic 9. So if his intention is to return the object, he sees he realizes the shovel was stolen, and so he buys the shovel, and then he plans to return the shovel, is permitted to buy it under those circumstances. Even though he's strengthening the hand of the thief, he's strengthening the industry of theft by buying it, but he's permitted to do it if he's going to return it. Otherwise, he's not permitted to purchase stolen items because that encourages more theft. It is forbidden to buy or benefit. Topic number 10. It is forbidden to buy or benefit. You see Shokanor Karab, Laws of Robbery, Topic 20. From any item that can be assumed to be stolen. So we don't have to know for a fact that the item was stolen. We just have to know that under the circumstances of the sale. Somebody's in a back alley and he's selling stereos in the original boxes out of the trunk of his car. It can be assumed that the person is a thief. The person selling watches, he's got a whole bunch of watches, and he's selling them, he's being real quiet, and every time the police comes by, he hides. It could be assumed that that guy's a thief. That's stolen items, and we're forbidden to buy or benefit from these items. Likewise, it is assumed that most items of the certain type in the market are stolen. If it is assumed, then it is forbidden to purchase any of them. So there's a flea market, and there's a section of the flea market where people are selling jewelry, and you look at it and you say, well, this doesn't make any sense. Why are they selling this? And it's kind of can be assumed that these items are, so even in the marketplace where it's out in the open, we should not participate in that. In any case, that one is suspicious of a sale, such as when the seller tells the buyer to hide the product being sold, it is forbidden to participate in the sale. So we just have to use our common sense in this regard, and understand if it seems to be stolen, then it's to be avoided. See Rambam Laws of Theft, Chapter 6, and Shokanor Koshan Mishpat, Chapter 358. Therefore, in a place where most shepherds steal, one may not buy from them any wool, milk, or goats, since these are assumed to be stolen. So this was a real problem during the time of the Talmud, and you had shepherds, but they were not considered the most honorable group of people. And this was in biblical times also. that the shepherds tended to be suspicion tended to be on the shepherds. If they're selling something, it would be assumed to be stolen. Certain items that one can assume to have been given to the shepherd, or he may take from the owner with the owner's permission, such as milk or cheese, he carries outside the city limits, are permissible to buy from the shepherd. However, if the shepherd has these items and is working close to an inhabited area, it is assumed that it is a stolen item, since the owner would not have given him permission to take them. So this has to do with the industry of shepherding. If you got milk and you're far away from a city and he has milk, well, he has to milk the goats. He has to milk the livestock. And if he doesn't milk the livestock, you lose. It causes damage it causes distress on the animals, and they will dry up by not being milked. And therefore, the shepherd wants them to be milked, and the shepherd doesn't care what happens to the milk because, the owner doesn't care what happens to the milk because there's no way to bring it to a marketplace. So if somebody finds a shepherd selling the milk away from a place where it could be sold by the owner, then it can be assumed that the owner gave permission. But if it's near the marketplace, if it's near an inhabited area where the owner would want to sell the milk himself, then it would be considered assumed to be stolen. So this would be, we don't have this situation today in most places, but it basically is using common sense. Would the owner likely to allow this, or would the owner likely not to allow it? Likewise, a shepherd who sells 4 or 5 sheep or cattle out of a small corral is not assumed to have stolen them, since the owner would be aware of the loss. Rather, he is assumed to be making the sale legally. So if it's a business where they keep close tabs on the inventory, and they're going to notice if the items are missing, they're going to notice if 5 stereos are missing out of the stock. Then if the person is selling a stereo, it can be assumed that he bought it with the employee discount and he's going to sell it because the owner is keeping track of the inventory. But if it's a larger place with a sloppy inventory system and people don't notice if some of the items are missing, then you would not want to buy from someone that's selling it because there's suspicion on it. Now, it's possible in such a situation that the person could be buying it at an employee discount and selling it legally, but you would have to have more information before allowing the sale. You'd have to see documentation or something that would show the person did own it legally. One may not buy fruit from a field's watchman in a place where the watchman is suspected of stealing, since he may easily be stealing the fruits from the field that he has been watching. So a watchman has a responsibility to watch it, and he is the easiest person to take something because he's the person that's supposed to be watching it. So it's easy for him to steal it, the object. So if we find the watchman, the security guard at the warehouse is selling items from the warehouse, that would be a red flag, and we should avoid buying things from that person unless there's clear documentation that shows that he owns the item and is selling it properly. Topic number 11. It is forbidden to buy an item from a known thief, unless one knows specifically that the thief has such an item that rightfully belongs to him. Even if the thief has a majority of identical items that are stolen and a minority that are legally belong to him, one may be lenient and assume that the item being sold is legally owned by the thief, unless it is clearly known that the item itself is stolen. That's from Shokan or Karab, Laws of Robbery, topic 10. So the person is known to be a thief, but he augments he owns a business. He has a business where he's selling items, and some of the items he buys correctly off the marketplace, other items he steals. And within there, you don't know for sure which items are which within his shop. If there's a reasonableness that these items are, there can be a leniency in such a case where a person says, okay, they're assuming that the item that they have is the proper item, and it's not the stolen item. And there's no way to tell which one item from the other in this regard. But the leniency can go towards buying the item from the shop owner. I'm aware of a bar that that most of their liquor was purchased through the normal channels, but he would go into a retail store that he had part ownership of. The owner would go to a retail store where he had part ownership in the retail store, full ownership in the bar, and he would take bottles of liquor off the shelf to use in his bar. And in a sense, he was stealing. He was also messing around with the taxes, but the person in the bar had no way of knowing if what he's drinking is legally properly the ownership of the owners, or if it's something that he stole. And so in that case, it would be the permission would go towards the allowance to buy the item. Topic number 12. It is forbidden to benefit from the money of people who are known to be thieves, as it can be assumed to have been stolen. It can be assumed to have stolen all their possessions and merchandise, since they have no legal business or profession. So people that are professional thieves, not the guy who owns the bar that some of his stuff is stolen, some of the stuff is legitimate, where we can give ourselves a leniency. The leniency can be given towards buying the item because it can be figured, it can be said that he's buying the legitimate item. In a case where the person that's his business is to steal, then we're not allowed to do business with the person. We're not allowed to we're not allowed to have anything to do with the person business-wise, because it just assumed that anything the person is involved with is stolen items. See Shokan or Karav, Laws of Robbery, topic 12. Thank you.